Hey guys, Connor here with Condor Blue, and today I'm actually here to talk to you guys about the brand new Canon C70. Now, I'm really excited about this camera, and I'm actually going to be talking to you about 5 reasons why I think the Canon C70 stands out amongst other cameras in the market. But first things first, I do want to thank Canon USA for sending this out so that we could test it out and also equip it with some really nice Condor Blue accessories and gear like our remote trigger top handle, as well as power cables and a few other things that you can see here. I'll have everything linked down below in the description. But let's go ahead and jump onto my first reason why I think the Canon C70 is so unique. So the first highlight of the Canon C70 is going to be its sensor. Now, it does share the same sensor as the Canon C300 Mark III, which just came out earlier this year, which there's a little peek of the sensor for you guys. But what's gonna make the Canon C70, as well as the C300 Mark III sensor so unique is that it is a DGO or dual gain output sensor. Essentially what that means is that it is going to, for every frame, expose for your shadows as well as your highlights. It's almost similar to how HDR works, although they are two distinctly different things. Basically, that is going to allow you to expose your images neutrally using the light meter, which you'll find on your LCD screen. And then when you take your footage over into your favorite NLE of choice, you're able to simply just drop on Canon's C-Log2 to Rec. 7.9 if you are shooting in C-Log2, which I would recommend for highest dynamic range. And basically, it's gonna make your image look very, very beautiful right out of the box. And then from there, you can make all of the necessary corrections that you need. Additionally, what makes the sensor so great is that it is a DCI 4K sensor, and that can shoot up to 120 frames per second, which is pretty incredible. Now, the second feature about the Canon C70 that really makes it stand out, especially in the cinema world, is that RF mount on the front. Now, this means that you're gonna be able to mount, of course, native RF lenses, which are absolutely beautiful. For example, we have the Canon 24-70 right here, which is just a great lens. Additionally, also the 28-70, which would be an absolute beautiful combination with the Canon C70. This looks great, but of course we can also adapt EF lenses to the C70 using Canon's speed booster adapter that they're coming out with very soon. Now, what makes that particularly interesting is that you are going to get out of a Super 35 camera a full frame field of view. You're also gonna be able to take full advantage of the entire glass of those EF lenses that you are adapting to it. It's gonna gather a little bit of extra light as well, giving you an additional stop of light, which is also pretty incredible, really making this stand out compared to the C300 Mark III, which is also a Super 35 camera, but it is limited just to an EF mount, meaning that there are no speed boosters available for that camera. The third thing about this C70 camera, and it's really great with all of Canon's cameras, is its build-in ergonomics. They always knock it out of the park, and the Canon C70 is definitely no exception. Of course, it feels really, really nice to hold. You have this beautiful grip as well as the sling over your hand, making sure you always have a nice tight grip. But there are a few other things that they went with this camera, which is great. Of course, we do have a full-size HDMI out, which instead of an SDI out, you're gonna be using that for your external monitors, external recordings, like to, let's say, an Atomos Ninja 5. Additionally, you have 2 audio inputs. They're both mini XLR inputs, which is absolutely fine. That's going to be great. And of course, the Canon C70 does have really, really nice preamps, basically eliminating the need for, like, let's say a Mix Pre 6. You're able to record directly into the camera. A highlight feature of the build of this camera is going to definitely be the built-in ND filters. Now, built-in NDs are found in a lot of cinema cameras. However, it is very rare to see built-in NDs in a camera of this size, which is great. They are controlled here on the left-hand side. So you hit the plus button to increase the NDs, and of course the minus button to decrease the NDs. Now, you do have 6 stops of ND built into this camera, but if you start stacking NDs, you can get all the way up to 10 stops of ND, which is really cool. Other standout features of this camera is going to be the touch LCD screen. Now, you are able to tap to focus, which is handy, but also if you tap on the bottom left corner of the screen, you're able to control a lot of other features. For instance, your white balance, you can add or decrease your ND, you can change your aperture, your ISO, your shutter angle, as well as you can change your resolution and codecs up in the top left-hand corner, which is all very handy to have access to all on the touchscreen. Now, another great thing about the build design of these Canon cameras is that a lot of the buttons can be reprogrammed, making this a highly customizable camera, so you can make sure that no matter how your shooting style is, it's always going to fit your needs. Now, a standout feature that we come to expect with these Canon cameras is, of course, their dual pixel autofocus. It is definitely my favorite autofocus and is probably considered to be one of the best autofocus systems in the game. Now, with the Cinema line, you actually do get a few additional autofocus settings that you don't get with, say, with their mirrorless line, like with the Canon EOS R5. And that is going to be, besides the normal face tracking and object tracking, you get the face only tracking. Now, what's really cool about the face only tracking is, let's say, for example, this shot right here, it's focused on my face and I can move around and it's gonna stay focused on me, but then I just suddenly turn around or I dip out of frame or something happens, it's going to lock on the last position that it saw my face. It's going to remember that spot and it's not going to hunt to the background or, let's say, hunt to the foreground or anything like that. It's going to lock in place, which is really handy. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and demo that for you guys. Okay guys, so we've now switched over to the Canon C70 as our main camera using that face only auto tracking. And then on our side cam, we do have the Blackmagic Ursa. Now, because it is using that face only tracking, it will continue to focus on me at f2.8, mind you, as I start to walk over towards the C70. But because it's face only, when I dip out of frame, it should remember the last place that it saw my face and lock in place. And then when I return back into frame, again, it locks onto my face. So then I can again move around and I always know that I'm in focus. The Canon Cinema autofocus is just absolutely pristine. And the fifth feature in the Canon C70 that I would like to highlight is actually its stabilization. Now, it doesn't have a stabilized sensor like internal body image stabilization or anything, but it does have digital IS. And for the most part, you can kind of get away with it for basic handheld, just kind of holding it in place shot. It's gonna get those little hand jitters out of it. And also because it is a slightly heavier camera, it should look pretty stable, should look pretty smooth. However, once you pair that with a lens like the 24-70 RF lens with built-in stabilization, you can actually get some very stable, very beautiful images with some slight movements. Now, it's not going to replace a gimbal by any means, but it'll definitely get you by and your shots can look pretty good. Okay guys, that was just 5 things that I wanted to highlight about the Canon C70. Of course, there are a ton of other features with this camera, and if there's anything in particular you would like for us to cover about this camera, be sure to leave a comment. Once again, I do want to thank Canon USA for sending out the Canon C70 for us to try out. This thing is awesome and we really do appreciate it. Consider subscribing if you haven't. Once again, I'm Connor with Condor Blue, and I will see you in the next one.